Dear friends, companions of Delhi Jesuit province, good evening. I am delighted this evening to be here and to speak to you, to share a few thoughts as a kind of a recollection as we prepare ourselves to celebrate the feast of St. Ignatius. At the outset, I am grateful to Father Nelson de Silva for inviting me to share these thoughts. In a few days from now, we are going to prepare the feast of St. Ignatius. We are already having the novena. And as we are aware, there are dozens, perhaps hundreds of messages we are sharing every day. And we see these messages prepared by scholastics, prepared by priests, and we see audio clips, video messages. So we have no dearth of preparation material to prepare ourselves for this feast. I thought of this theme, letting Ignatian vision permeate our hearts, our thoughts, and our conversations. Let me begin this reflection and this recollection sharing, listening to the popular prayer that we have attributed to St. Ignatius, the prayer for generosity. Lord, teach me to be generous. Teach me to serve you as you deserve, to give and not to count the cost, to fight and not to heed the wounds, to toil and not to seek for rest, to labor and not to ask for reward, save that of knowing that I do your will. St. Ignatius lived in extraordinary times. Paradigm, epochal changes are the words that we often use. That was a time of exploration. The visions popular at that time were of St. Francis of Assisi and St. Dominic. The Dominicans and Franciscans were there serving the church in a big way. And Ignatius comes into this time. And initially, I would like to look at on this thing. St. Ignatius leaves us a great legacy. His life, his writings, especially the spiritual exercises, the letters, the constitutions, the diary, and a lot of other things that we have. And from here we can see the vision that we have, the Ignatian vision. I am not going to directly refer to them, but we will look into this theme, that is how that vision can permeate our hearts, our thoughts, and our conversations. Heart is central for everything. Pope Francis, in his encyclical Delixit Nos, reminds us of the significance of heart, how crucial it is. In that, he asks us to look into ourselves and pose these questions. Let me quote Pope Francis. Who am I really? What am I looking for? What direction do I want to give to my life, my decisions, and my actions? Why and for what purpose am I in this world? How do I want to look back on my life once it ends? What meaning do I want to give to all my experiences? Who do I want to be for others? Who am I for God? All these questions lead us back to the heart. As we know, heart and thoughts are central for our lives. But Pope Francis reminded us that we need to look into our hearts much more than we are accustomed to. After enlightenment, the last few hundred years, we have given a central place, perhaps extraordinary place, too much a place to the mind, to our thinking, our planning, what we need to do, what we need to accomplish, We want to accomplish lots of things. We want to become experts, managers, organizers, but we seem to be losing our heart. Saint Ignatius reminds us of the centrality of the heart. We need to be people of a heart, where heart animates us, guides us, and directs us. Especially, we have to become magnanimous people. How do I do? How do we do? How do we put a positive interpretation to the things that are there in front of us? Saint Ignatius was very kind, very loving, very generous. He reminded us that God is present everywhere, and we are reminded to see God in all things and all things in God. There was no place for polarization, to divide ourselves, we and the others. Ignatius had a heart that was able to embrace everyone. As Pope Francis reminded us, todos, 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 everyone. We should be able to have everyone in our own hearts. And do we allow our hearts to direct us, to animate us? There are many examples to know. We are all familiar with Maria Goretti. When Maria Goretti was stabbed by Alessandro Serinelli, she was worried about the status of Alessandro. She prayed, she begged for his repentance. She wanted him to repent so that he will be able to go to heaven. She was suffering, she was about to die, but she was worried that he should not be lost because of what he has done. He was trying to abuse her, and he stabs her, and she dies in the process. But yet she wanted him not to be lost, but to be saved, and if possible, that he should be able to share heaven with her. That's an extraordinary thought, extraordinary idea that she had about another person. We would have said immediately, go to hell. How such a criminal person can be understood and forgiven? But she looks at him from a very generous and a kind heart. And you know eventually what happened. The person who was reluctant initially to accept his mistake acknowledges, repents, and he was forgiven. He served his sentence, and then he stayed with the Capuchins, Franciscans as a porter. Eventually he lived such a wonderful holy life, and now his cause is being in the process. So eventually we may have a blessed Alessandro Serinelli. So that only reminds us that we can go beyond our usual ways of looking at and then see the people with a very, very different way. And what do we do? How we allow heart to direct us and guide us in our own lives. When we are selfish, when we are self-centered, we fail in many, many ways to be wonderful Jesuits. But Ignatius reminds us that if we have a magnanimous and a generous heart, we will be able to do wonderful things. The second one is the thoughts. As I mentioned, St. Ignatius was at an extraordinary time. World was changing. Many, many people were looking for wealth, fame, glory. The colonization, people wanted to possess more, have lands, have wealth. At that time, even before, when St. Augustine was there, Aquinas was there, ambition was a value. Many even considered ambition as a virtue. You have to do great things so that you will be remembered during this lifetime. Perhaps when you are gone, you will be remembered by the other people. So people have constructed monuments, big places, were acquiring wealth, doing extraordinary things, great things, fantastic things, but all for their own glory. Obviously, the soldiers gave their lives and they are remembered. Often they have remained as heroes. So, there was an option for the people, for Ignatius and the others, that we have to do great things, and that virtue is called magnanimity. We should not do small things, we should do great things, perhaps the greatest things that are possible for us at this time. But we do these things for God's glory and for the well-being of the people, so that there is a human flourishment. So, you see, there are people doing great things, extraordinary things. We should build the greatest thing, we should build the greatest building perhaps. We should plan something very, very big, not for one's own glory, but for God's glory, for the well-being of the people. That made Ignatius to be an outstanding person. And all those who were guided by St. Ignatius were like that. Those who were trained by him, those who spent some time with him, became extraordinary. They were not thinking of small things, they were thinking of very big things. One has gone to another country, many have gone to other continents. They were thinking of big, big things. This doing great things, extraordinary things, wonderful things, they have done not for their own glory, not that they will be remembered one day, perhaps they will be and they are, but they were doing all these things for God's glory, because all people are God's children, and whatever is done for the well-being of the others brings God's glory. So, that is how they were doing extraordinary things. So, it is not easy to have great thoughts. We are all familiar with this book, Markings by Dag Hammarskjöld. W.H. Auden, who writes foreword for this book, has a wonderful quotation. The quotation is attributed to Cesare Pavese. He says, "We can all do good deeds, but very few of us can think good thoughts." This might look surprising to many of us initially. We thought it's easy to do a lot of things, but it is difficult to do great thoughts. This author, Cesare Pavese, says, we can all do good deeds, but very few of us can think good thoughts. To think of the well-being of the others requires good will, and we need to have a very good will, the will from where the well-being of the other flows. So, we have in front of the old parliament a wonderful line from Rigveda, Ano Bhadra Kratavo Yantu Vishwataha. It translates, may good thoughts come to us from all directions. This is a great human aspiration. We do lot of wonderful things, but we should have people who will be able to have great thoughts, noble thoughts, wonderful thoughts, not for their own glory, but to do wonderful things for the well-being of the others. So, Ignatius had this in mind. When he was thinking, he was not thinking with selfishness or self-interest. He was cleansed both at Manresa and all through his life, and finally he is so attuned to the way God wishes us, God wishes our well-being, and he was thinking of great things for the well-being of the people. So, we are here primarily not only to have great hearts, but we should have great thoughts, and only when we have wonderful thoughts we will be able to do. What blocks us from having great thoughts? Perhaps it could be ego, selfishness, anger, bitterness, pain, suffering. In many, many ways we fail to have great thoughts, to cultivate great thoughts. Will we be able to do, will we be able to think of wonderful things in our conversations? Perhaps this leads us to the next part of this theme that we thought of, letting St. Ignatius and his vision permeate into our conversations. We all have conversations, we all speak to each other every day. We are very good as conversationists. We speak usually plain routine things. There is light here, Can I have something? Shall we go? It's bright there. Can I borrow your book? These sentences are simply sensible, but they don't reveal much of ourselves. But true heartfelt conversations are crucial for us and for our lives. The first thing is, are our conversations affirming, life-giving, nourishing, helpful, positive? If I have 100 sentences during the day, how many of those sentences have been positive? Did I affirm someone? Did I appreciate somebody? Did I wish the other person well? Did that person have more hope, more faith, more trust because we had that wonderful conversation? That's one way to look into ourselves and see how our conversations can be nourishing and life-giving. In the conversations, the second part perhaps is, are we able to reveal ourselves? Many people say that our conversations are hollow and we are hiding ourselves and we are uncomfortable to reveal ourselves. Revelation doesn't mean we have to give secrets and we have to tell something that is confidential. It is simply to reveal ourselves, our views, our intentions, our opinions. I read something, I liked something, I was uncomfortable with something else. So many people are having conversations about the climate, about some politics, about all that, but many of us are not revealing ourselves in one way or the other. Something that we read, something that has happened, something that has impacted us, something that we are joyful about, something that we are struggling with, or it could be what's going to happen in the world. But finally, does this conversation reveal us so that we are able to understand who we are and who the others are, and where God comes into the picture, and we are able to affirm with each other? Perhaps another important aspect of the conversation is, today we have phones to speak to people. We speak to people directly, but media, especially cell phone, and there are many other means perhaps to be in touch with each other. And we have lots of conversations. There could be very positive ones, very affirming ones, very where we appreciate each other. But there is also a chance that we are not using this time to help people to put a proper perspective. Let me give an example. If somebody shares that I am upset with something, I am hurt by someone, and someone has done this to me, I am not able to digest how this has happened, how I can cope with these difficulties. There are situations where we will take a very positive stand and we will be able to help that person to overcome so that he can see things in a better perspective. But there are times where we are not able to do that, and in fact we harm that person. If somebody says I was hurt by somebody else, if I don't say whether how we can what exactly was the situation, and if I add on to that, how can he do that, you should fight for that with that person, you should fight for your cause, then finally we are not helping that person, but we are adding to the problems of the person. The person remains much more continuing to struggle and suffer. But we don't get the entire picture when we have conversations on phones. So we only get one side of the story, and then while we are with the person, we are sympathetic to the person. If we only tell him that you are right and all those who said the other things from the other side, they are all wrong, then we have to fight against that guy, and that you are the victim and this cannot happen to you, we will not leave this like this. Perhaps we are harming the people in one way or the other. I remember when we were scholastics, many of us asked for studies. We wanted to do some studies, but then some of us will get a chance to go for degrees and PGs and postgraduate studies, but some of us may not have been sent by the provincial. But if I go and tell my friend that I wanted to do that and the provincial did not give me this permission, we can take a stand and say, how can he do that? He sent the other guy, why he is not sending you? He is very, very harsh on you. We will fight about it. So nobody said like that. They were saying very, very positively. okay, you will get another chance, it does not matter, you are going to do theology. Once you are a priest, you can always get something else done, and then you have other talents. So, people were able to encourage us, see things in a brighter perspective, not to take it as a personal thing that you are as though you are offended, but keep it in a positive way. But today there are people who might be adding to these struggles and complications, and then our conversations are not helpful, but at times it can be even be harmful. So, when we are looking at these things as Jesuits, as sons of St. Ignatius, we have to look into ourselves, and perhaps as we celebrate the feast, as we are seeking the graces that we are looking for at this time, that God may bless us with these graces, we have to pray that we may have wonderful hearts, the hearts that are permeated by Ignatian vision, and our thoughts may be noble and greater, thinking of the well-being of the others, and that our conversations be uplifting and ennobling. So, it is possible, and that there are many Jesuits who lived this way, and they have gone, hundreds of people, thousands of people have gone this way, living wonderful lives. So, today during this as we prepare ourselves to for this celebration, I would like to end reading 2 lines. Dag Hammarskjöld first says, when he was in 1952, he has this line: "What I ask for is absurd, that life shall have a meaning. What I strive for is impossible, that my life shall acquire a meaning." But in 1961, he writes in his diary, "Once I answered yes to someone or something, and from that hour I was certain that existence is meaningful, and that therefore my life in self-surrender has a goal." So, dear friends, it is wonderful as we prepare ourselves to celebrate the feast of St. Ignatius. Let us ask for this grace, and that we may have generous hearts, noble thoughts, and our conversations be uplifting. Thank you very much. Have a wonderful time and have a great feast. God bless us.